Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week two. So I hope you keep the work up with all the assignments, the assessments, the discussions. Um, it's a very fast-paced course, guys. It's only a few weeks, so you have to put in the work every day and make sure you finish all the work from week one before you start week two. Um, So it's not a 4 month semester, guys. It's 5 weeks. Make sure you keep up with the work. Secondly, and I already mentioned this for week one, start studying for week two, on Sunday or whenever the week starts. Watch the videos, watch the material, watch the readings, watch the book. But don't take the assignment and the assessment until you watch this, right? The learner support tools, right? What's the basic difference? Well, when they lecture everything, they're lecturing everything, right? What I'm doing here is condensing and letting you know what to concentrate on, and I'm bolding it, right? Dark, right? Know this. Like this week is muscle and bone. What are you going to do? Memorize 600 plus muscles? No, wait until my breakdown so you know what muscles to concentrate on. What are you going to do? Memorize 206 bones? Wait until I break it down, right? Wait for my LST and then take the assignment and then take the assessment. Otherwise, you don't know where the questions are coming from. All you have is, tons of material explaining the material, right? Or the topics, but you don't have a condensed breakdown. That's what I'm providing, a condensed breakdown. So wait until I do this. You study this, and then you take the assignment and the assessment. Why would you take it before? Doesn't make any sense. All right. I usually make these short because I'm not lecturing on the material that's in your, in your week two folder, right? All I'm doing here is telling you what I want you to concentrate on, right? Let's move on. Three systems: skin, skeletal, and muscular. Here's slide number one. This is something I mentioned last week. So when we covered mitosis, right? And week one, there is a question on week one about mitosis, right? And cancer, right? So you went over the phases: interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. And there's a question about a tumor, which showed up on your exam. And tumor was, based on the video I uploaded, was uncontrolled mitosis. 2 words, guys. So you make a flashcard, you write tumor, flip the card, uncontrolled mitosis, right? So the material says mitosis, cell division, right? Why do we need to know that? You need to know that because the second leading cause of death is cancer. So you want you to have a basic understanding of what cancer is, right? So week one asked you what a tumor was, and that was uncontrolled mitosis. Step one, what's mitosis? Cell division. Step two, what is a tumor? Uncontrolled mitosis. You're done. 2 words, uncontrolled mitosis, right? And that was a clinical application. Now with the skin, which, as you know from your recording, it's the largest organ in the body. It's their first line of defense. All that is nice. But we talk about cancer of the skin, right? Melanoma. What does melano mean? Black, right? It's a combining form meaning black. What does oma mean? It's a suffix meaning tumor. Tumor of, yeah, black pigmentation, right? But what's bolded here? Commonly known as skin cancer. So what do? You take a flashcard, write melanoma in front, flip it, right? Commonly known as skin cancer. Study that flashcard. That's all you're doing when I'm doing this, right? What else did I bold? Over here, basal cell carcinoma. So you're right. You flip the flashcard, right? Most common type of skin cancer. And the incidence of basal cell carcinoma is on the rise. Actually, that applies for both. The incidence of basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma is on the rise, right? Um, so that would be what you write on the flashcard, right? Um, so the skin is non-keratinized stratified squamous, right? Squamous cell carcinoma. And the epidermis, which is dead tissue. Did he say dead? Yes, I said dead. Is dead tissue, is composed of several layers of stratum basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and corneum, right? So the stratum basale is where melanin is produced, and hence basal cell carcinoma. Let's move on, guys. So know the stuff that's bolded, make a flashcard, flip it, right? All right, here we go. Here's a Venn diagram. As you know, this is different from your lectures. I use Venn diagrams, I use flowcharts, right? So here's a Venn diagram comparing basal cell carcinoma with squamous cell carcinoma with malignant melanoma. And for basal, we know it's the most common type of skin cancer, and malignant melanoma is the most lethal, right? But it's also known as skin cancer. All right, let's move on. That was just reinforcing the stuff from the past, right? Sebaceous glands, right? There's oil, right? Produced in the skin, which is lubricating the hair follicle. That oil is known as sebum, right? So this, this slide is letting you know what sebum is. Skin is protected by a thick, oily substance called sebum. Clinical application and inflammation of a sebaceous gland is also known as acne vulgaris. So the acne, right? That is an inflammation of the sebaceous gland, and the sebaceous gland produces what? Oil. What's the oil doing? Lubricating a follicle. And what's the oil called? Sebum. What's the sebum doing? It's protecting the skin. How's it protecting the skin? It has antibacterial properties. Let's move on. Skin barriers. So sweat has an enzyme called lysozyme, but what's bolded? This. Skin is protected by a thick, oily substance called sebum. That's what I want you to know, guys. Right? Protected by, a thick, oily substance. All right, layers of the skin, right? Dermis is the true skin. So why am I adding this diagram? Well, the diagram is giving you a hint that you should know the skin diagram for your exam, right? Know the epidermis, know the dermis, know the hypodermis, also known as subcutaneous. That's the pore, right? Look at this. That's the sudoriferous gland. Ooh, they call it eccrine sweat gland. Yeah, so sudoriferous or sweat gland, sudoriferous. And here's your sebaceal oil gland, right? Look at the shape of the sudoriferous sweat compared to the sebaceous. Look at the location of the sebaceous. The sebaceous is right next to the hair follicle, right? So no hair follicle, no hair shaft, no sebaceous gland, no the sweat gland, no this fat tissue, right? Well, actually, it's over here, adipose tissue, right? And then there's blood vessels, red and blue. Make sure you know all this, right? All of you have different majors, but if you're giving an injection, there's an intradermal injection, so you have to know where the dermis is, and that dictates the angle of insertion. If you're getting a subcutaneous injection or hypodermis, you have to know where that's located, and that dictates the angle of insertion. What do you have to know? Well, it's bolded, right? The dermis contains blood vessels that help regulate body temperature. The epidermis would be above the dermis because epi means above, upon, and that's the superficial layer. Did you say that was dead? Yes, it's dead, right? Oh, here it is. 30 layers of dead tissue. Yes, absolutely. Um, and what I said week one, if you replay that video, is I said it keeps shedding off, and it's shedding because of mitosis. One of the layers is basically absent, but it's only found in the palms, right, of the hand and soles of the feet. That's why the palms are thicker. That's why the soles are thicker. They have an extra layer. That layer is called stratum lucidum. So, dermis contains blood vessels, helps to regulate temperature. Epi means upon, above. Stratum lucidum is found in the palms of the hand and soles of the feet. So comparison, epidermis to the dermis contains blood vessels that help regulate body temperature, right? Reinforcing that. Abnormal skin color. So in your discussion, if you talked about, the skin burning or sunburn. In a sunburn, the skin turns red. That's known as erythema. If a person has redness of the skin, you would describe it as erythema. There you go. But what if someone has low oxygen levels, hypoxia? Right. So that would turn blue, right? So a person with hypoxia or low oxygen levels would likely have uh, what color nail beds? Blue, right? So know the blue nail beds in hypoxia, know the red in terms of a burn, like a sunburn. So what's a sign? What's a symptom? Well, we can see a sign, we can measure a sign. Examples bolded: urticaria, hives, right? Urticaria would be the same as hives, the same as wheals, the same as a welt, right? Skin condition in which intensely itchy wheals or welt appear, right? And that's the importance of documenting the allergies a patient may have. You can't just start putting on gloves without knowing if they have an allergy to latex. The consequences of that could be fatal. That can induce anaphylactic shock. So make sure you know or rule out, exclude that the patient has allergy, right, to latex. And for this slide, no urticaria, it's bolded, right? Skin condition intensely intensely itchy wheals or welts, right? Burns, first degree, second degree, right? Third degree involves the epidermis, all the dermis, and some of the deeper tissue. May not be painful. Why? Because you're destroying the nerve endings, right? And when you destroy the nerve endings, the patient may lack sensation. So as you take your history and they're telling you that they don't feel the pain or it's numb, that could be consistent with a third degree burn, right? May not be painful. Let's move on. All right, so here's a reinforcement of that third degree burn. May not be painful due to destruction of nerve endings. All right, so muscles now. That's the second system. You have agonists, which initiate the movement, antagonists, which oppose the movement, synergists, which help the movement. So what's bolded here is an example of an antagonist. Pectoral means chest, guys, right? Pectoralis means pertaining to the chest. The pectoralis major is actually involved with arm movement, adduction, right? So and assists in upper arm. So it's located in the chest and assists with upper arm movement. And then you have the term synergist, which is a muscle that helps stabilize joint activity, right? Synergist is a muscles that help stabilize joint activity. Let's move on. these are just examples of muscles, the muscles of mastication, right? But I want you to concentrate on the origin. Where does the muscle originate, which is typically a bone? Origin is the part of the muscle that moves the least during contraction. Make sure you know that, right? Muscle fiber proteins, you have contractile. So contractility is the ability of a muscle to shorten in response to suitable stimulus. Make sure you know that. It's bolded. Elasticity is the ability of a muscle to return to its original length. Make sure you know that. Tetany is caused by sustained muscle contraction, and strain is muscle rupture or tear. Whatever I'm bolding here, make sure you make flashcards of it and you know the definition. All right, so metabolism. I mentioned ATP for week 1. Did you? Yes, you had a question on it, right? Mitochondria was the organelle where most of the energy was produced, right? So for week 2, it's clearly the major source of energy for muscle. And when you use up, the ATP or the muscle's low in oxygen, that may cause muscle pain. Myalgia is a term used to describe muscle pain. And then defining the word anaerobic means, it means without, right? Anaerobic pathway. So when you're running a treadmill that's aerobic, you're inhaling oxygen, you're making ATP, as I mentioned for week 1, which is over here, that's aerobic. If you're lifting a weight, right? If you're doing weightlifting, right? You're contracting perhaps hundreds of muscles and you're only taking oxygen once or so. So some muscles may not get enough oxygen, and that goes into an anaerobic pathway. Therefore, weightlifting is known as anaerobic exercise, whereas running a treadmill would be aerobic exercise. Nonetheless, ATP is a major source of energy. Myalgia is muscle pain, anaerobic. AN or A means without. All right, so there's different functions of muscle: breathing, storing, moving, generating heat, right? There's a sphincter, which is found in the rectum. So that's going to control what? The passage of stool. Then you have sphincters on your urethra, which is allowing the passage of urine. And then you have sphincters in your stomach, which is allowing the passage of food, right? And all these are sphincters. So sphincters are dilated muscles or special circular muscles that open and close to control the passage of substances. Make sure you know that. Make sure you know what a sphincter is. Types of muscular tissue. So we need to know which ones are voluntary, which ones are involuntary, which ones are striated, which ones are smooth, right? For this particular slide, just know that cardiac, which is a muscle found in the heart, cardio means heart, cardi is a root meaning, card is a root meaning heart, and IAC or AC means pertaining to heart muscle. And it's under involuntary control. Guys, we didn't tell the heart to beat, so it's involuntary. We tell some of our muscles to move, and that's voluntary, but the heart would be involuntary. All right, here we go. So here it's classified into striated, heart muscle skeletal, or striated. Non-striated would be smooth. And then we have voluntary, which is skeletal, and then we have involuntary, which would be heart and smooth, right? Smooth would be found in the intestines, right? And we don't tell the intestines to move. They're found in blood vessels. We don't tell the blood vessels to move. Cardiac is found in heart. Bones, right? Our third and last system. There's different types of joints. One type of joint is called a hinge. So think of a hinge of a door. The elbow would be an example of a hinge joint, also known as the humeroulnar joint, right? Make sure you know elbow is a hinge joint, right? So this is classified based on the axes, right? Uniaxial, biaxial, triaxial. The hinge joint is moving in one plane, and therefore it's uniaxial. And an example of hinge joint would include knee, elbow, and ankle, right? So no elbow is an example of a hinge joint. Here's a diarthrosis, amphiarthrosis, synarthrosis. No hinge is one of the joints, and elbow would be an example of a hinge joint. Here's again, same thing, hinge is elbow, right? Fracture types, there's different types of fractures. No green stick for sure, make a flashcard. Green stick is a type of fracture where the bone bend but do not completely separate. So incomplete fracture would be a green stick, right? And it's common in children because of, the large quantities of collagen, right? So green stick, flashcard, flip the card. Know that it's a type of fracture where the bone bends but does not completely separate. All right, diaphyses. So long bones have a shaft called the diaphyses, and they have the ends, which are called the epiphyses. Remember, epi means above, upon, right? So the ends of the long bone are epiphyses. The shaft, the middle, is known as diaphyses. On diaphyses, make sure you know it's bolded, hollow cylinder that makes the bone strong, hard, right? Hollow cylinder that makes the bone strong, hard, diaphyses, right? Same thing here, right? Compact bone, strong tissue, hollow cylinder that makes the bone strong, hard, right? So diaphyses, right? So we have the trunk, 80 bones, right? The extremities, which are about 126, also known as the appendicular. Um, Upper extremities, humerus, right, which is the bone in the upper arm. Know that. Bone shapes, right? Humerus is a bone in the upper arm. Bone cells, no osteocytes or mature bone cells, right? Bone cell comparison, osteocytes, know that osteocytes are mature bone cells. Osteo means bone, guy. Cytes is a suffix meaning cell, right? So make sure you know it's a mature bone cell. Abnormal spinal curvatures. I want you to know kyphosis, exaggerated posterior curvature of the thoracic spine. And that's a humped curvature in the thoracic area of the spine. Know the definition of supine and prone. Prone, which is bolded, lying on one's stomach with the face pointing downward, right? And there's two extra diagrams. So the first one was the skin. Make sure you know the skin. But you also have to know the skull bones, right? So know this diagram. Occipital, parietal, temporal. Know the ethmoid, frontal, right? I think you even have to know the maxillary. The maxillary would be here in white. And then know the vertebral column, but know how many bones are in each, right, guys? There's 7 cervicals, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 to 4 coccygeal, right? So cervical would go from C1 to C7, thoracic from T1 to T12, lumbar from L1 to L5, sacrum from S1 to S5, coccyx from CO1 to CO4, right? Know these two diagrams and the skin. Know this diagram, know that diagram, know the skin diagram, guys. All right, and that's the end of week 2, guys. So make sure you watch this video in its entirety, right? Do not fast forward. I'm standing between you and the assessment and the assignment, right? I'm giving you pointers I'm condensing the material. I'm telling you where to concentrate. I'm bolding the sentences I want you to know. I'm giving you Venn diagrams and flow charts. I'm giving you diagrams so you study those diagrams, right? This helps you a lot in terms of taking your assignment and assessment. Make sure you study these, make sure you make flashcards out of it, make sure you absolutely know what I just went over prior to taking the assignment and the assessment. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know. And of course, I'll be posting the learner support tool for week 3. And I'll probably be doing that a little earlier, probably do that on Sunday or so. All right, guys. Email me if you have any questions, and I'll see you later.